Hey everyone, I hope you're doing really well today. So I have recently been focusing more on summertime fleeting citrusy type of fragrances because it's been really hot here and I have kind of been neglecting my stronger fragrances. And because of my pregnancy, I haven't been wearing a lot of these strong fragrances. In fact, during even the colder months of spring, I was already starting to wear summery type of fragrances. So I started to miss my stronger perfumes and I wanted to focus on them today. So I will be sharing the strongest, most powerful fragrances, both from my collection and also from my husband's, because he's actually more into the deeper, richer perfumes. Something I do want to remind you all is that longevity and performance is very subjective. I did a pretty in-depth video on this topic already, so I'll link it here. But as a reminder, we all experience different things with fragrances, both with how they smell, but also how they perform. And a lot of that has to do with our environment. It could be our climate. It could also be how our skin is. But a huge thing that we often forget is our perception of it. I think that's especially true when we overspray a fragrance. I know for me, I tend to get nose blind to certain perfumes if I over apply and I just don't detect the fragrance anymore. And then in my mind, I might think that it's not a great perfume in terms of longevity, and yet my husband could still smell it on me. So keep in mind that these fragrances that I'm talking about today might perform differently on you because of how your skin is, but also because of how differently we could perceive a fragrance. So let's get started. These are in no particular order. Let's go with this one first. This is Oliban from Keiko Mecheri. And this is a fragrance that I definitely only wear in the wintertime. If I were to wear this right now, I would probably feel very nauseated because of how strong this is. However, I do know some people that can tolerate this in the summertime. But for me, I find this to be a very strong rose, a candied rose, sweet rose fragrance. There is a waxiness to it that reminds me of candles burning. So there's something kind of gothic yet romantic about this. There is a sensuality to it too because there is this resiny olibanum, as the name would suggest, in the base. So if you're looking for something heavier and very sweet, this is a great one to try out. It does project a lot. This is a room filler for me, and also this lasts a very long time on my skin. Here's a challenging one that I think is a great abstract piece of art. This is from Comme de Garçons, and this is their first ever fragrance that they released. It was originally called Comme de Garçons, but people now refer to it as the original. And this one, I cannot wear this in the heat. When I wear it in the wintertime though, it is, to me, quite a beautiful beeswaxy fragrance. It is spicy. There's all these different spices in it. It can get overwhelming to those who aren't into spicy fragrances. There is also this ambery quality to it. I believe styrax is a note that's in here, which is actually something I'm typically challenged by because it can smell very animalic, especially when there's a high dose of it. There is also something quite humanistic about it. It can smell quite sweaty to some. So in the wintertime, I think this is a great one to wear for me if I'm feeling bold. I have worn it out on a few occasions, but usually if I'm not in close contact with people. I tend to wear this at home though when I'm wearing a sweater. In the summertime, this is very challenging to wear because the styrax is very animalic. It kind of comes off as smelling like ass to me. But it's interesting because it's not like it constantly smells terrible, but even in the warmer months, it kind of weaves in and out of smelling, you know, very beautiful and honeyed and beeswaxy. And then all of a sudden you'll get this hit of ass in your face. I can't even find the words to describe this very well, but It's a great one to try out if you want something adventurous. And I don't wear this a lot, but I want to keep this in my collection because to me it's that piece of art in a museum that you just can't look away from. Speaking of ass in your face, here's Jasmine. This is Lust from Lush. And you'll see I did not use a lot of it because I need a tiny drop of this when I wear this. I like how this smells, but it can be very challenging to folks who don't like jasmine. It's a very sweetened, fruity jasmine. And man, this projects. This is another room filler for me. It also lasts a very long time. Even after I shower, sometimes I could still detect it on my skin. And for the price, if you're someone who's like really into finding a great performing fragrance, and you have to love jasmine, in my opinion, you could try this out. Here's one from my husband's collection, and it's probably one that is featured in a lot of these type of videos that talk about powerful fragrances. This is Tom Ford Black Orchid, and this is the eau de parfum. And this, when I wear it, I think it's way too brash for me to wear, but it fits my husband's personality very well. He rocks this with, little effort, I think. It really suits him. And to me, I know people have talked about this before, but to me, this smells like a tuberose fragrance, which I think is funny because my husband usually doesn't like that note, but I get quite a bit of tuberose in this, and it comes off as this melon candy or honeydew candy type of smell. There is that earthiness, there's like a truffle-y note to it, there is patchouli. It is just very bombastic, and luckily I like smelling it off of my husband, but I know this can be quite polarizing even to this day. Some people still do not like it, and I understand why. Here's one from an indie artisanal brand. This is from Maison De Darius. It's called Onore, which means honor in Italian. So you'll notice I have the older packaging. The packaging that the house has now is a lot nicer. So Zach, the creator, has these new labels that look really cool. I wish I had this in a newer bottle, but I bought this when the brand was still very new. But Onore is a very beautiful rose oud fragrance. That's basically the main things that I get from this. And the reason why I purchased this is because I liked other rose oud fragrances like Oud Ispahan from Dior and Rose d'Arabie from Giorgio Armani. And in both of those, I felt like the balance was a little bit off for my taste. So in Oud Ispahan, I love that fragrance, but it was more oud forward. I wanted something with more rose. And then Rose d'Arabie had it flipped where the rose was a lot more forward. In this one, I feel like the rose and the oud are well balanced. But this is so powerful that I had to decant this into a smaller dabber type of glass bottle. I have tried it through the sample, and I think because the sample doesn't spray as much of the perfume, it was more mellow when I tried it out before I purchased this. Because the atomizer on this sprays a lot more, it can get overwhelming. That's how strong this is. It is an extrait de parfum, so that makes sense. But if you're looking for a rose oud fragrance and you want it to be like a punchy, powerful one, this is a great one. But for me, I tend to prefer dabbing it on. And when I do that, it is a lot softer and it fits my taste better. All right, another one from my husband's collection. Sauvage. Do I have to talk about this? People have talked about this before. You know what it smells like. Everyone smells it. If you haven't smelled it in store, I'm sure you've smelled it on someone. So I think that one doesn't need any more recognition. But here's another one from his collection, Tempo. This can be a controversial one because some folks say that the longevity of this sucks, and I have to disagree. My husband wears this a lot, and when he sprays it on before work, I can smell it like 12 hours later. So when he comes home and then he settles in, I could still smell it on him. And then also this sticks on clothing very, very well. So after he does his laundry, I could still smell it. So I think it's a very good performing fragrance. It might be one of those situations where maybe weather could affect our perception of it, or it could be becoming nose blind to it. I don't know. But on my husband's skin and his clothing, this performs well. I have talked about a story of how I was able to find him in a store because he left a massive sillage. So in addition to being a long-lasting fragrance to me, this also performs well in other ways. So yeah, if if you're trying to look for someone, maybe spray some Tempo on them and maybe you could find them. Here's one that's a little bit softer in terms of its texture. To me, this is a very smooth fragrance, and yet it performs very well. This is Rose 1845, one of my favorite rose fragrances. I adore this. This is a very complex study of different scents and nuances you would get from roses. And I did do a full review of this, so I don't want to talk too long about this, but in terms of the performance of this, this was a perfume I was able to smell when I received the package in the mail, and before, or like as I was opening the box, I was able to smell this. So I think it performs really well, you know, in the air, but also on myself when I spray it. But it's one of those fragrances that even though it is very strong, I don't get annoyed by it. Like I could actually put this on in the summer, even though I know it can project quite far. It doesn't bother me, and I wonder if it's because, well, one, I love the smell, but also the smoothness of it I think helps. Usually my summer perfumes are very soft, but this is one that I am very surprised at in terms of how it performs. This is Magnolys from André Putman, which I did feature in my video where I talked about my husband's favorite perfumes to smell on me. This is my longest lasting warm weather fragrance, and also it is the best in that genre in terms of how it projects off of my skin. I had worn this one time. I was like in a large van with some friends, and then they were all able to smell me, and that was like with 2 sprays. So you know, people will definitely smell this on you. It is one of my more complimented fragrances. People have commented on how good I smell. It could also be that they're just noting that they could smell me. So yeah, this is a great one if you are trying to find a summertime fragrance that performs very well. Cuir de Chine is another one that I love. This is from Les Indémodables, and the thing that makes this stand apart is how far of a sillage it leaves. So I could leave a room and this will stay there. And this is one that also walks ahead of me. So if I apply it on my chest and then I wear it out and then I'm walking, it's as if someone else had been wearing the fragrance in front of me when I walk forward. So that's a really neat effect that this has. This is a kind of like a dusty osmanthus that has apricot nuances to it. I talked about how this can be very intense in terms of how it focuses on the osmanthus flower. I think you have to like that flower, the way it smells in order to enjoy this. Okay, let's do 2 more from my husband's collection. This is Pink Mahoghany's French Cuffs. My husband really enjoys this, and I like how this smells like on him. It has a very unique development. So at first it comes off as very, very smoky. There is that cigarette tobacco-y smell, and sometimes it can come off as very barbecue-y. The smokiness can fill up a whole house even, or well, our house is kind of small, but I'm able to smell this on my husband if he applies it in the other room. It lasts a long time, but even though that cigarette smoke kind of sticks around for a bit, it turns into this smell that reminds us of this well-dressed gentleman. There is like that aftershave-y type of smell to this too. So I've never smelled anything like this. It's really cool. My husband enjoys wearing it. He always comments on how he enjoys how it develops from the beginning and then down to the dry down. And it also lasts a very long time on him. And then here's Ligno from Jeroboam. I did a comparison review between this and Tempo, And Ligno was one that I knew lasted a long time on my husband. I didn't think much of the projection until I actually smelled it on our friend at a wedding. So my husband and I decanted a sample of this for our friend because he said that he likes earthy type of smells, and we figured, okay, let's give him some patchouli scents. And we didn't know he wore this sample at a wedding. And while we were at the wedding, I smelled Ligno, and I turned to my husband and I said, I thought you were wearing Tobacco Vanille today. And he said, no, that's not me. And then we figured out our friend who was sitting on the opposite side of this large table was wearing it. So this actually can project pretty far. And it's not annoying though when you smell it from afar. To me, it has that softness to it, but it could still, leave that trail and that cloud around you. So it's a very elegant patchouli fragrance. It's more on the sweeter side of patchouli, I think, and definitely less dirty compared to Tempo. Lastly, I have Sana Jardin, Tiger by Her Side, which is a beautiful benzoin patchouli fragrance. The benzoin, I would say, is the main note that I get from this, and that adds to the coziness and the sweetness of this fragrance. I love the name of this. I think it really goes well with the smell because of how cozy it is and how powerful it is. This can project a lot. When I decant this for my friends, it definitely fills up a room when I apply it into a sample vial, and that smell can linger for a long time. So it's a great one that I think appeals to a lot of people who love the sweeter type of fragrance. So that's all I have to say for today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if there are any powerful fragrances that you love to wear, or if you are the type of person who's into this type of fragrance. I'm usually not, but in the wintertime, I reach for these, and I especially like to wear these when I want to feel like a badass. So I'll see you again next time. Take care. Bye-bye.